It didn't happen in my 20s. Who cares? Now I've got all this fancy wisdom to share. Hey, I've got this baby, you're getting the best of me, 'cause I'm a new mommy at 40. Welcome to New Mommy at 40, a honest, informative, and non-judgmental podcast for those navigating to and through parenthood in their 40s. But before we get started, don't forget to follow, subscribe wherever you're listening to this so you don't miss a single episode. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to New Mommy at 40. I'm so happy to be back with some new episodes. I've taken a little break, and I can't think of a better way to get back into it than with Liza Poor. She's 41. She's an actress, singer, YouTuber. And she, after kind of contemplating with her and her husband whether to have a third, she's got two already, she got a surprise. She had already sold all her baby stuff, but someone had a little surprise for her. And so now she is pregnant with her third. And when are you due, Liza?
I'm due in April, in early April.
In April. So Here we are. We're so happy to have her. Let's welcome Liza to our New Mommy at 40 family. Welcome, Liza. It's so nice to see you.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to chat with you. I was telling everyone it was real kismet that we ran into each other again and that we have this commonality. It's so funny.
I know. So background for everybody is, being the actress that I told you that she is, she and I met at an audition, actually. Mm-hmm. And we were going for the same role, and it was the strangest audition when we met up the other day. You do your audition, you do your callback separately, and that's cool. But this audition, the callbacks were in front of the other everyone. Like, even if you weren't even auditioning for that role, we were all in one room, just like
one room. Yep.
singing our butts off to each other's face. It was very strange, but in a weird way, we got to, debrief a little bit when we met up the other day. It was kind of nice to be able to like see everyone's stuff and feed off that energy.
Yeah, it was really cool, and it was unusual, like you said, but it was really cool. And the thing that I was saying is that so often in this business, you kind of, or at least I do anyway, beat yourself up about, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. Oh, they were so much better than blah, blah, blah. And I remember leaving that, and like both of us, I feel like we're talking and so complimentary. And I was like, you were so great. And you were like, you were so great. And I was like, this could not be clearer that like we are two very talented people, and it's just going to come down to whatever this director sees. Mm-hmm. And I just felt really great leaving that callback. So it was kind of amazing.
Yeah, it was really great. And I was hoping that I'd run into you at some point, because for me, it was like my first time in 17 years, like auditioning again. So I thought, okay, if I get back into this and she's local, it would be great to like see her again. I wonder what happened to her. And then I walk into a cafe, and there's Liza sitting there, and she's like, I'm like, hey, what's going on? And she was telling me all the stuff that she's doing. And I thought, it really, I would have loved to have worked with you. And she's like, well, I'm working on something else. And I'm like, oh, congratulations again.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a surprise. It is unplanned. It doesn't mean we're not excited. We are so excited. Yeah. But yeah, like you had said, we'd gone back and forth for a little while about, do we want another one? Do we not? And I just kept kind of feeling like the answer's not no, but the answer's not yes. So I don't know. And then, I had gone to my doctor to get on hormonal birth control again, because my periods were just kind of out of control and starting to get in the way of me being able to do things, like they were just awful. And so I got back on birth control, and I kind of felt like, okay, well, there it is. There's the answer. Like, we're back on birth control, whatever. And then 2 months later, I found out I was pregnant. So use that backup method, people.
Wait, so you were truly already on the birth control and still that is crazy.
Yeah. Well, and not to take it down immediately, but there is a lot of, I'm someone who's fairly active in the body positive community, being a plus size person myself. And, there's a lot of kind of medical stuff with plus size people where drugs are not properly tested. on plus size people. And the thing with birth control is that it's not tested on women over, I think it's 200 pounds or something like that. So if you are a plus size person and you're on birth control, just keep that in the back of your mind, because I think honestly that's what it was. It was a very low dose of birth control. My doctor said, you're good to go after, the waiting period, whatever it was. I can't remember what it was. And I was like, great. And it was beyond the waiting period before we, did the hippity dippity with no backup. And it didn't matter. Here you are. So be careful.
Wow. So wait, let's go back, because I want to get to what your decision-making process when you and your husband were thinking about the pros and the cons. We want to figure that out. I want to go back to that. But how old were you when you had your first child? Because you have two, right?
Yes, I have two kids, and my first one, I was 30 when she was born. Yeah.
Okay. And they're 10 and 6?
10 and 6, yeah. So the second one, I was 34. So I came in just under the advanced maternal age.
Yes.
Line there when I had the second one. So
now I wanted to ask you, because being that you are from, of the body positive community, I wanted to ask, was there any with the second one, even though you weren't quite at the advanced maternal age, did they treat that one a little differently because of you being plus size? You know what I'm saying? Like, did they try to lump you into that category? And you're like, hey, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I know it starts at 35.
Yeah, because I was right on the cusp, there was a little bit of that, especially with the second one. Honestly, there was some of that with the first one too, because another kind of monkey wrench is that I'm also adopted, so I don't have any medical history.
Right.
So for example, the famous gestational diabetes test that you have to take, where you drink that awful drink, and they had me take it early, in both of my pregnancies. The second one, so you take the first test, and if it's under a certain number, you're good to go. And if it's over this number, then they diagnose you with gestational diabetes. And if it's in between, they make you do a second test that's a little bit more intensive. And I was just under the in between, and they made me take the second test anyway. Basically, they assumed that I had gestational diabetes because I am overweight. And I did not have gestational diabetes for either one of those pregnancies. I do for this one, unfortunately, but yeah.
Yeah, and that can happen to anyone. Like, you could be 100 pounds and you could be over 200, and anyone can be susceptible to gestational diabetes. But I was wondering whether they treated you differently. I guess it's really important to make sure that your team is not so, I don't know, backwards and open-minded and asks the right questions and is on your team and doesn't look at you in that way. Right?
Yeah, and it's hard to find out. There's a lot of bias in the medical community, and honestly, I found anyway, my experience, it's not necessarily the doctor's fault. They're not doing it on purpose. It's just something that's not really taught in medical school. Like, they haven't caught up to that yet. Right. But there are lots of doctors, great doctors out there, who are kind of part of it's called the health at any size kind of movement, where you're not walking into a doctor's office and immediately being judged for your size, which is wonderful.
That's awesome. Yeah. So 30 and then 34 with the second one. You delivered at 35?
No, I delivered at 34. So she was born in March. She was born in March, and then in July I turned 35. So.
Oh, okay. So you have those two experiences under your belt. What were those pregnancies like for you?
They were good. I mean, honestly, here's the thing. With the first pregnancy, my husband and we met in high school. So we've been together for ever. It's quite literally 24 years at this point. And at that point, we had been together for 12 years. We had been married for 5 years. And we were starting to think about starting a family. And it felt like, to me, everyone around me was having trouble conceiving, and it was taking a really long time. And I kind of thought, well, I'm probably going to have trouble because I'm overweight, because I don't have medical, I don't know what's going on here. So maybe we'll just be a little bit less careful. And apologies to your listeners if they're not into TMI, but when I tell you the first time that we had unprotected sex, I got pregnant.
Whoa.
Absolutely wild. And I was not prepared. I thought for sure it was going to take at least a year. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's kind of like, okay, I guess we're right in. Let's go. Let's go. And the pregnancy was fine. Like, it was very, like, almost stereotypical, honestly.
Yeah.
I do remember going into it thinking, like, oh, maybe I'll be one of those women that just, like, loves being pregnant and is glowy and blah, blah. And I was like, I hate this the whole time. Obviously, the end result is wonderful, and I love my children so, so much. But man, I don't like being pregnant.
It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody.
No. But I was very active throughout my whole pregnancy. At the time I lived right outside of New York City, but I was in the city a lot, walking around, moving around a ton. I was totally good up until the end. And then labor and delivery was very textbook. Like, my water broke. I went to the hospital. I labored for a little bit. I said, this hurts. Give me an epidural. They did. And then I pushed. And the first one took a little bit of time because she was face up, which is harder to push them out. And it was also my first baby.
Mm-hmm.
But the second one, I pushed, I think, twice. And she was born. And it was like the doctor almost didn't make it. So yeah, very like textbook.
Wow. No, that's not textbook. That's just awesome. That's just all the women who are in labor for like 20 something hours are like, textbook. Is that textbook, Liza?
Well, you know what I mean? Like the kind of like stereotypical like movie. I really prepared myself, being a slightly anxious, over planning type person. I really had prepared myself to like let go and be like, 'cause that's the thing with giving birth, right? You can make all the plans you want, and then it's going to happen how it's going to happen, and you have no control. So I did a lot of that work of like, you have to let this go. And then it turned out to kind of go very according to plan, which I'm so grateful for, honestly.
That's awesome.
But yeah.
No, but it's good. I mean, that you had, it sounds like at some point your mind, heart, everything kind of clicked in and aligned to like, okay, we're doing this. Leave the outside, fears or concerns, leave them there and just surrender, kind of. You know what I mean? And your baby followed through and was like,
okay, yes,
here I am.
Yes, exactly.
And you have two girls, right?
Two girls, yeah.
And so now with this third one, how so far can you compare the pregnancies fairly? Have a really understanding of the things that are different, things are the same. Do you feel that your age is playing a factor in how this pregnancy is going right now?
Oh yeah, for sure. So again, with the first two, even though with the first one I said I was not necessarily expecting to get pregnant so quickly, both of those were planned. We made a decision to have a baby, and this one was not. It was a complete surprise. I was not at all expecting to be pregnant. So from the get-go, it was just like, wait, what is happening, and I think the biggest difference being older now is that, and I'm not trying to say I'm like 1 foot in the grave or anything. Like 40 is not that old, but I am at a point where in my head, I'm still very like, everything's fine, everything's cool. And my body's like, girl, you better sit down. Like yesterday I painted, we're like so we're setting up the nursery in our bedroom, and I was painting one wall, doing an accent wall, and painting the closets and all that. And I was painting for like 2 hours. And I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, I can't walk. My back hurts so bad. And it's just, and that did not happen in my other pregnancies. I had a little bit of back pain and a little, especially towards the very end.
Yeah.
But this has been since middle of the second trimester. It's just been like not sleeping well. The back is really hurting. Just kind of my body is not as strong as it was maybe when I was a little bit younger.
Well, I mean, let's give yourself some grace, right? You've got 2 kids. Who are older and active. You're doing stuff with them too. You know what I mean? So I'm sure age, internally, I feel it. You don't look your age at all. You know what I mean? So I feel like we know that there's definitely wear and tear. And I personally, with back problems, I don't, my husband's always chucking it up to age. But I feel after birth, my back was really never the same. I had diastasis recti, and I still do have
Oh
a little
yeah,
bit.
for sure. Mm-hmm.
So it could, it could be those things. But I mean, you did an amazing thing twice already. You know what I mean? Your body has
Yeah.
already. So, but I was wondering in terms of like is there a perspective now that wisdom has afforded you in your age with pregnancy, like at this stage? You know what I'm saying? Like, because in parenting, even like, are you seeing yourself kind of as the first time parent and how you parented your first child versus the second one, which is and now like what energy do you have left for how you're figuring out how this is going to go, because this kid's basically coming into a system that's already set up,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah, no, and honestly, that's kind of the great thing about it is that my husband and I keep talking about this because the pregnancy has been a little bit stressful, um, just as far as like gestational diabetes, and I had a lot of spotting in the first trimester, and had to get like fetal echoes and things like that. Again, mostly just because of my advanced maternal age. I have to see two different doctors, and
Yeah.
so it's been very kind of hectic and stressful. Neither one of us is super worried about when the baby's here though. Like we keep going like, oh right, there's gonna be a baby. Um and but we both feel very like secure just because, like you said, this baby's already coming into a system that's in place. And what's kind of cool is that it feels like, I feel like anyway, as a parent, as you go along, each different stage, each different age, you're kind of leveling up as a parent, right?
Yeah.
So I have an 11-year-old. So right now we're leveling up into the preteen, teenage, hormones, middle school, etc. phase, right? And I'm gaining those skills. And what's wonderful is that this baby's coming in and I already have those skills. I already have those
Right.
levels up to, this point. And obviously every kid is different, and it's kind of fun to see, especially like between the two I have now. It's really fun for me to see how different they are,
Mm.
and how you do have to kind of employ different parenting hacks and skills with each of them because of their personalities. But in the end, it's like, yeah, I've already done this. I've tried a couple of different things, so I kind of know what to do, or I feel very confident knowing what to do with this
Mm-hmm.
third one, which is kind of lovely. Also, there's a difference between the person I was at just barely 30 and the person I am at 40. It feels like there's a lot of kind of talk about how, your frontal lobe doesn't fully develop until you're 25 or something, 23 or something. So up until that age, you think you're an adult, you think you know stuff, and no, you don't. And I look back and I'm like, yeah, I definitely felt that way. I thought I was cool and I didn't know anything, and I feel like, honestly, I did not feel secure in who I was, or
Mm.
like really truly secure until like early 30s. So now that I'm 40, it's like, yeah, I know what this is.
Mm-hmm.
So that is feels like a completely different approach to parenting, because I know who I am, what I want to raise my kids to be, like what my goals are for raising children. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very solid in that at this point. So it feels good and cool,
Yeah, always cool. I mean, you said you thought you were cool. I'm sure you've always been cool. But
I don't know
but
about
but
that.
it's good now. It's I would think, because I only have one, but there is that feeling now of like, I thought I was in my skin in my 30s, but now I'm, like, I'm more comfortable with the word no. I have
Mhm.
boundaries now that I feel
Mhm.
like, even though it's my child, like, I still feel like I apply some boundaries to her that I feel I would not have developed 20, 30 years ago. For example, kind of like, you know, and I'm going to ask you about this because you have two. I have one that just turned 4, and I'm just like, the night, like, I felt like overnight, like this, like, whatever got downloaded or uploaded into her brain of like, this is what 4 is. I wasn't prepared. The
Oh
manual
my
is
gosh,
late.
4.
Um,
Woo.
but,
Yeah.
with her, I'm noticing that there's this, a way of expressing herself that I'm really happy. I don't want to snuff it out of her, but it's almost like
Mhm.
there's not a discernment between me and like a friend per se of like it's like orders kind of like mama, and she speaks French too, so it's just, and my listeners and people who've been here know this. So with the accent, it's just a little bit more, a little bit extra. So
A little
she'll say,
more.
"Mama, viens," like, "Mama, viens." I'm like, okay, like how about saying, "Hey mom, can you come here please?" Or
Mhm.
kind of. And I don't know, it's just I'm just because I'm experimenting with just how I feel in the world in general at this point. I'm like, no, you too, you're not
Yeah.
excused. Like, figure out another way to speak to me please. Just have a little, I don't know, something in your voice that just tells me you're not barking or orders at me. But that could be my sensitivity to just how I know that I wouldn't have gotten away with those things. That's what I'm finding
Mhm.
in parenting,
Mhm.
and at this age is
Mhm.
like, because I for me, being having my first at 41, I was pregnant with her at 40. I feel like I had a lot of time of just kind of being me and assuming what parenting would be like for me. So when I got here, and I thought, it's like no brainer to go right into what my parents used to do. And all of a sudden that's not cool anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
from like
Yes.
maybe when
Yes.
I was 20, if I had a kid at 30, we were a little different as a society. But now
Yeah.
I really cannot apply a lot of how they dealt with me in public, for example, if I did something, I don't have that luxury of
Mhm.
going, now you come here. I mean, feel like people, I'd be on TMZ, like I'd be recorded, it'd be all over, you know what I mean? Like, if my
Yeah.
parent I wonder if my parents had like cameras accessible all the time for people to like, would that be I mean, we just cannot do the same thing. So I'm finding that
Absolutely.
that's how I think my age is presenting in my parenting, of like really kind of trying to get on board with, and it's not too hard because I feel like some aspects of my parenting were a little harsher than I think I needed personally.
Mhm.
So it's nice to feel like I'm in a space, or we are in a society where we're encouraged to kind of cater, or not cater, but develop, curate your parenting style based on who your kid is too. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is wonderful, which I think, I'm feel grateful to have had her at this stage of my life. So I
Mhm.
was wondering, like, for you, what are you hoping, is there anything that you think is really different in terms of having this child now for you versus like your 6-year old? Is there anything that you feel like is like a do-over chance that you get, or has parenting
Oh,
gone very smoothly for you up until this point?
that is such a great question. And I feel like I'm going to give a very boring answer of like, I don't think there's anything that's a do over other than I'm so excited to see what this new one's personality is and how I will have to shift my parenting to get the same result from her because it's another girl. Um,
Yay.
and because my older two girls are so different. They could not be more different. And I'm the same parent to both of them, but they're different. You just have to handle them so differently. And I love that you brought up like if our parents had cameras everywhere, would they have, gotten away with the kind of stuff that they did? And like the answer is no, because exactly they would have been on TikTok, on Instagram, like
Mhm.
crazy lady yells at her kids in the Walmart or whatever it is, and so yeah, so it is a completely different world. I think what's wonderful too is that there has been a kind of a fundamental shift in what parenting is from when our parents were parents, and the basic of it is that like these kids are humans and they have
Mhm.
feelings, and this is not to knock our parents. They did the best that they could.
Of course, of course,
um
of course.
but there, that's a big shift, is that kids are people,
Mhm.
and they have feelings that are valid, and et cetera, et cetera. And I think for me, just going into parenting felt very much like I'm one of five kids in my family. So my parents, and there's a big age gap
Mhm.
between, there's three and then there's two. There's a huge age gap. So honestly, we got two different parents because my parents were in different phases of their lives.
Right.
And there were so many things that they did that I have taken and written down, and I'm going to do this. And there's so many things that they did that I was like, I'm never going to do that. But I think that's kind of where I started, was like, okay, how I was raised and what I liked and what I didn't like, and then applied it to my kind of basic principle, which is like, my goal is to raise a human that's not a jerk. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like, my
Yeah.
goal is to produce a human that is cool and kind and helpful and strong, and confident. And that is my goal. And it's funny you brought up four, because I have always said I have worked with kids for most of my life. Like, when, over the summer, instead of getting waitressing jobs, I was working at summer camps, I was babysitting, I was nannying, I was, I've always really loved kids. So I was always working with them. And then also, I come from a big family and there's a huge age gap. So in my 20s, I had a bunch of nieces and nephews already, little babies. So I had a lot of experience with kids. And I remember thinking that even back then, like, people always talk about the terrible twos, like, oh, the terrible twos. And I'm like, two is nothing compared to four. Four is a whole new ball game, because they're just so much more independent at that age.
Yes.
And they have so much more to say. And my thing is always like, I love, baby girl, I love that you have an opinion. I love that I'm raising a strong, confident woman. That is what I want. But I am going to need you to listen to me, please. It's like, where do you find that balance? It's a constant battle with that balance of like, yes, I love that you are speaking your mind and saying what you want. Please don't talk to me that way.
Yeah, it's like it's that, I always say, and thank you for validating this, because
I mean,
I literally was like, it's been 24 hours. Like, what? You've literally been four for 24 hours, and you're
right.
like, she literally was like, it was a day. I think we were an hour 16 of her like being four, and she was like, I don't want you to call me my first name. I was like, what? And she's like,
what?
And she goes, it's Dunker. Call me Dunker. Her
Okay.
last name, which is our last name. I was just like, oh, you go by Dunker now? Like, that's your moniker now? And she's like, yeah, I don't want you calling me my name. I want you to call me Dunker. And I was like, why? And she goes, I just like it better. And she went, I don't know, that Curry. I was like, oh, okay. And then like an hour later, she goes, no, Mama, you can call me Curry now. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. Thank you so much. I mean,
that.
And then it's just this personality. But I've always said, and I joke to my husband, I've said this before, there's something, when you have a child, there's, at some point you just are in tune, or you have an idea of who this person is already, and we forget along the way as we're trying to parent them, but they give you glimpses. And the running joke between my husband and I'm like, she's going to turn 18. She's going to wake up that morning and she's going to come out with a suitcase that has been underneath her bed the entire time. Like, she's been just tucking things away. All her money gifts over the course of her birthdays would be saved up. Her passport would be all ready. And she's going to come out and go, guys, thank you so much for everything that you've done. It's time for me to go. And she's going to go, this was great. Thanks for the last 18 years. I appreciate this so much. I'm going to go now. I just feel like I'm, she's a very independent spirit, and she's fascinating. She's amazing. What I'm finding is just, I'm getting more triggered by things that she has no clue about. So it's like, it's day one for her. And for me, if it's like, oh, this reminds me of, or, oh, respect, this idea of what respect is to me, which is not as important as like taking the time to figure out what is going on in her mind about that moment. I really do try to like, okay, where is she coming from with that? Like, why? But we're human, and I'm finding that if this stage is like, first of all, I had to make my peace with 3. I don't know why I assigned 3 as the end of baby. Like, I mean, because she's was not a baby.
No,
You know what I'm saying?
I see that. It's like 3, you can still kind of pretend that they're a toddler. Once they're 4, it's like, that's a kid. That's a
It's a
kid. That's a
kid.
full kid. Yeah.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
end of toddler, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
she's not a toddler anymore, really. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and even when I pick her up, I feel like it's like this, it's like all of a sudden, it's like this long human being, and she's
Yeah.
heavy. And I'm like, but when she does ask me to pick her up, I'm like, okay, you know, like, oh, like, hey,
Yeah.
okay, you're so heavy, but yes,
Yeah.
you know, but,
Yes.
they still need us. But, you know, in retrospect, I'm sure, or in comparison, you have a 10-year-old. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there's still times that she feels little to you too, like when she needs her mommy or she needs her daddy in a way, right? Where you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're
No.
still a little kid," you know?
No, absolutely. Well, and here's what I'll say. One, going back very quickly, if
Yeah.
that does happen and she turns 18 and she grabs her suitcase and she says, "Deuces, this was awesome. Thank you so much for everything." Um, you should feel secure in the fact that you have done your job.
Yeah. Thank you.
Truly,
Yeah.
truly, because I'll tell you what, my oldest is the same way. She's so independent. She wants to do everything on her own. When I so she was born in September, so it's that kind of the school year. She's the
Mhm.
youngest in her grade. We could have started her at school at the age we did, or we could have waited a year. And we started her because she was ready to go. And when I tell you, we walked into that first day of pre-K, so it's pre-K 3. She's 2. She's about to be 3, but she's actually 2. We
Okay.
walked in, all the other kids are crying, clinging to their parents. No, don't leave, don't leave. Ella literally turned around and was like, "Okay, bye, mom. Bye." Like, she's like, "Why are you still here? Please leave." And I was like, "Okay, all right.
Oh. Oh.
Okay, bye." Like, it was heartbreaking. And the thing that people kept saying to me, and that I knew that was true, was that, like, no, you did your job. She felt secure and confident. She knew that you were not going to leave her in a place that was scary or
Yeah.
bad. She knew that. And that's because you you were jiving with her personality and raised her and made her comfortable. So, and yeah, she's the same way now, where it's just like, again, wants to do everything herself. She's very independent. And especially with this transition to middle school, there have been some moments where she's faltered a bit. And
Mhm.
a lot of that has to do with like grades and studying and stuff. It's a whole new world. She's very smart. She's not a kid. She's a kid who does really well at school. She's not a kid who has to work very hard. But every now and then she keeps coming home with these grades that are not up to snuff. And I don't want to instill in her any kind of like fear or anxiety about school. You don't
Right.
have to get an A, because honestly, my parents did that to me. And I spent my entire schooling being stressed out about getting a B in math class. And I'll
Oh
tell
my
you
god.
what, I went to theater school, didn't I?
Yes, you
So,
did.
so what?
No
What was
one's
it
asking
for?
you for those bees. No one cares.
No,
No one
I don't
cares.
care. So, but I mean, it did, having that work ethic did transfer to being in theater school and having that work ethic. So that's what I'm trying to instill in her. But at the same time, there's a lot of having to step back and being like, she has to make this mistake because that's the only way she's going to learn. So I keep wanting to come in and be like, no, no, you should do this. No, you should do this. And having to be like, no, the way that she learns is by
Mhm.
making the mistake. And it's okay to make the mistake. And then it's how you react to it. Whereas my little one, she is younger, but she wants me to be all up in her business. She wants me to be there and guide her every step of the way. So it's with her, it's a little bit more of like, no, no, you can do that on your own. You do it. You know what I mean? Like, she'll still want me, even little things. She'll still want me to like zip up her coat as we're leaving the house. I'm like, you are 6. You can zip your coat. Come on now, and just so it's completely opposite in trying to encourage her independence in that way.
Mhm.
um yeah, so it's like, again, the differences between the two is really, really interesting and fun. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see where this third one fits into all of that. I wanted
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what when you and your husband were thinking about, because you had that moment of like, should we not?
Hmm.
What were the pros? Why did you want one, and why didn't you want one? And how did you
Hmm.
come to basically not wanting? Because that's what led you to getting on the birth control, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for me, a lot of it was just, I grew up in a big family. So that's kind of when I picture my own family, I kind of pictured, 6 kids and, like big, holiday gatherings with everyone coming back together, just loud and boisterous and, what have you. My husband grew up with one other sibling. So he was kind of living the family that we had already, just 4 people. And the thing that, so one, for me, it was like, in my head, it was always like, no, you're going to have a huge family with a ton of kids. And then the other thing was just like, I kept, it's that thing where you see a baby or you see someone else with a baby. Like a couple of my friends have just started having babies, and I'd go over and I'm just like, oh my God, the little squishy baby on your chest.
Nothing like
nothing
it.
better.
Yeah.
Nothing better. And I literally was like, oh, I want that again. That part, I love that. Like, and then also doing the math of like, right, but that does actually mean a whole other human. Like, it's not just a squishy baby that you give back. Like, you have to, so that was kind of the back and forth. And the house that we live in right now is a good size for the 4 of us. And we're not really in a position where we can like move or expand that. So money wise, it didn't really make sense. And then also it was very much like, well, now I'm 40. Well, now I'm, you know what I mean? It's like, is it too late? So that, well, all of that went into the decision of kind of like, yeah, I guess, we're done. I had also, a little over a year ago now, I had a cyst, a very large cyst on my left ovary that was causing a torsion, which is where it twists it. So I was in a lot of pain. I went in for emergency surgery. They removed the ovary. So I was like, I'm down an ovary. I'm 40. I'm back on birth control. Like, these are all signs, you know what I mean? I was kind of waiting for the universe to tell me, what the deal was. And I was like, these all feel like clear signs that we're done. And I'm happy. I love my kids. I love my family. We're happy, I'm content. And then the universe was like, hold up a second.
Since you've been so patient and so content, let me give you a little, it's kind of,
yeah. I also do keep joking though that my younger one fully manifested this baby. She has been asking for a baby since she was about to turn 4. And like to the point where it was for her 4th birthday. And she was like, she kept telling people, I'm getting a baby for my 4th birthday. And I was like, honey, you can't tell people that. They're going to think that mommy has a baby in her tummy. And she's like, no, I know you don't have one now, but like for my birthday. And this was, 2 months before her birthday. And I was like, babe, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. So, but I swear, and ever since then, she's been begging for a baby.
Now, when's her birthday? Is it July?
March. It's March.
Oh, it's March.
Yeah.
And when are you due?
April.
Almost a birthday present.
I know,
You're
right?
kidding?
I was like, I swear she manifested this kid. I was like, this is all your fault.
That is funny. It's like, it's kind of still around the time. That is so funny. It could have been any time in the year that you were like expecting. And now that's the due date, or not too far from her birthday.
Nope. It's like, it's wild. And she continues to be extremely excited. Says good morning to the baby every morning, good night to the baby every night. Just like keeps just randomly just like, I don't want to wait anymore. Like, when is the baby coming? I was like, girl, me too. but yeah, she's very excited. So that's really good.
Is there anything that, like, I don't know, worries, concerns, or anything that you may have about integrating a new person into the routine at all, or anything at all?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's always going to be those worries, right? Even though, I like I said, I feel very confident in like parenting style and being able to parent this kid, but it's always going to be a huge change. It always is. And when we went from 1 to 2, I definitely remember thinking a couple of times, oh, what have we done? Um 1 was so much easier. And my oldest loves her sister, is excited about the baby, but is not the same caliber as the younger one. And she's kind of like, okay, sure. Like she's just kind of, she's chill about it, you know?
Yeah.
And I, with the second one, I remember thinking, oh my God, have we ruined her life? Have we ruined the older one's life? Like she had it good, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And there was definitely some adjustment stuff. So the older one was 4, almost 5 when the younger one was born. So in that kind of tough
Mm-hmm.
4-year-old phase. But she got there, you know, and they love each other and they play really well together, even though there's a fairly big age gap there. And yeah, so I worry about bringing another one into this dynamic because it's just going to change, and change is always going to be scary.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way around it. And you know, is the baby going to get here and the younger one's going to all of a sudden be like, this was a terrible idea?
Yeah, right. I
You
hope
know,
not. Yeah,
I hope not,
the
but
the odds are in your
yeah.
favor that she's gonna be a really doting like older sister, you know?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And then also again, it's just that, you know, you don't remember, because I think the body and the mind are very good at blocking out traumatic experiences. You don't remember, but you do remember that, you know, what they call the fourth trimester, that newborn phase where it's just like you're a complete zombie and
Mm.
you are barely getting by. And you know, you just gotta, I like, you just gotta get through it. If we can just get to month 4, we're gonna be good. We'll
Yeah.
be good to go. And I worry about that phase also having to take care of these other 2 kids, you know, because it
Yeah.
does really feel like you're sleepwalking through it, you
Yeah.
know.
But
um
you have 2 3
yes,
able-body helpers, which is good,
yes,
right? With their ages.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
that'll be
exactly. I
helpful.
think that will be very, very helpful, and honestly was a perk of kind of waiting so long in between the first 2, was
Mhm.
like she can understand a little bit more than if you have them closer together. Obviously, there are benefits to having kids closer together, but like
Yeah.
having them spread apart, it's like, oh, she can understand a little bit more. Like, hey, mommy is exhausted right now. She still loves you, but we are going to
Mhm.
sit and watch a TV show as opposed to like playing princesses or something, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, I am nervous about the change in the dynamic from a family of 4 to a family of 5, but I'm also excited about it. I think it's going to be good. And
That was my next
yeah.
question. I'm like, what are you looking forward to? Saying
I'm
party of
looking,
5? We're a party of
yeah,
5
part of
now?
5. I am looking forward to, um, just, I think going from 2 kids to 3 kids is really going to satisfy that kind of big family feeling without necessarily having an overwhelming family, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's, I think it's really gonna, I feel very confident that after having this one, I won't feel like, oh, do we need more kids? Like I'll be like, yeah, we're done. We're good. This is perfect. This is what this is the loud kind of crazy environment that I wanted. You know, that feels like family to me. And I think it's gonna be really fun. I'm really excited to see my younger daughter interact with her baby sister and see how that goes. I'm excited to watch my husband be a dad again, because he's a great dad. Just to brag on him a little bit, he really is like
Mhm.
a wonderful father, and really great and helpful in those zombie moments, and just he's great. He's wonderful. So I'm excited to see
What's his
that
name?
again. Mike.
Shout out to Mike. Hi,
Shout out to Mike.
Mike.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I'm interested. So, my older brother also has 3 kids, and I remember him. He's very analytical. Like he's a computer guy. He's a computer nerd. He's a tech nerd. He's just very, as opposed to my kind of like creative, artsy fartsy, you know, wild, whatever. Um, we love each other very much, but and I just remember him having his third kid and being very grumpy about the fact that the world is built for 4 people and
Mm.
it's not built for 5 people. Like, and when, you know, and he was specifically talking about, I think they had just taken a trip to Disney World or something like that. And, you
Mm.
know, trying to take kids, you have 4 people, you have a parent for each kid, but now you have 5 people and there's 1 extra kid and there's no, you know, like seating arrangements on, like he was just
Oh.
very analytical about it. And it really stuck with me because I found it very funny. So I'll be interested to see if I have that feeling of like, oh no, the world isn't built for 5 people. It's built
The
for 4.
world isn't built for 5. It's built for 4. That's a very
Isn't that such a
analytical.
weird
Yeah, it
thing?
is. I never thought about that because we're a family of 4.
Hmm.
I never thought about that. But, you know, I think if in your case, because of the ages, uh, you can have like your oldest will be really instrumental. Yeah, I think where I've heard people say like their perspective of having the age range that gap between the
Hmm.
oldest and the youngest is the fine line or being careful to not remove the sister role from the oldest as like where she becomes parental. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like just because you're
Absolutely.
older doesn't mean that you're always the one, getting the bottle and you're getting the pamper and getting whatever, where they feel like it's so transactional. You know what I mean? Kind of like, I'm always
Yes.
doing something for
Yes.
this baby. Like, can I just like enjoy the baby too, like everybody else? Like, but
Exactly.
they are able to help. So you take the help when you where you
Hmm.
can. So that's what I've heard is
Yeah.
like kind of like making sure that the oldest still can experience both roles of being the support and then also being the sibling in that sense. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that
I
means
am.
anything to you or whatever, but it was something that another guest had mentioned
No,
was
I'm
that.
absolutely like hyper aware of that, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, like I said, I come from a very large family and there's a huge age gap. So it's three kids and then a 10-year age gap, and then me and my
Oh
younger
wow.
sister. So I was, the baby, and my siblings were the babysitters. They were the built-in babysitters.
Right.
So it was like growing up with 5 parents.
Right.
Um, and I'm sure that they did not enjoy that very much. And I was very, my mom kind of offhandedly mentioned like, oh well, Ella will be a big helper, she'll be changing diapers and blah blah blah. And I was like, not necessarily. And I
Right.
was like, well, and I was like, well, no, Ella, she didn't have a baby. I had a baby, like it's not her
Exactly.
responsibility. I hope she will help out. And I hope to instill that because I want, again, to raise a good human who's not a jerk. So I hope that if she sees, hey, mom could use a hand right now with the baby, that she'll jump in and do that. And I hope to, encourage that in her. But that's not her baby. That's my baby. That's her sister. And there's a big difference there. And I'm hyper aware of it. And I want to make sure that she knows that that she feels comfortable in her role and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, no, I'm definitely thinking about that.
Oh, you're such a good mama. I can't
Oh.
wait to see her. I can't wait. I'd love to like maybe we can talk again like after like 6 months. Whatever that
Yes, that would be
feels of like,
amazing.
okay, so they're here. Here they are, the 3 of us.
Yeah.
I would really, my
Do a
3
follow up.
girls.
I'd love that.
I'd love to do a follow-up. But thank you so much. I
Yeah.
think it was really great to hear your perspective through the pregnancies and what you're expecting and what you're looking forward to now. And I think it's really also important for anybody who is thinking, oh, this may not happen to me, especially our plus size mamas out there. I
Mm-hmm,
hope
mm-hmm,
that they listen to this and don't listen to all of the noise and the chatter that society
mm-hmm.
puts on them. It's like you can be a mama, you could be a mama without any issues. You could pop a baby out like Liza, without having an issue, and make sure that you have a really good team that is on board with you and are willing to look at you and not size you up in general terms, and is on board with what your plan is and whatever plan that might be, even though it goes out the window. Birth plan's always like
I know.
whoop. But
Like cute. Okay.
cute, yeah, that was really cute. But I thank you so much. I think you're just a breath of fresh air, and so I'm glad that we ran into each other.
Oh,
And thank you so much for
yes.
contributing to the new Mommy at 40 community. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. This was so wonderful.
Special thanks again to Liza Poor. You can follow along on her journey by visiting www.lizapoor.com, and I'll leave all her social media handles in the description. And I'd like to hear from you. So leave a review wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on all the social media platforms at New Mommy at 40. Our website is www.newmommyat40.com, where you can also submit to be my next guest. Theme song was written and performed by yours truly, composers Boris Tavastanov and myself, musical arrangement by Yazioko Yaz Fukoa, and animation by Ellen's Animation. See you next week.